Hi, welcome to my channel, Sewing with Tay. I am Fantasia. If you're new here, this is your first time stopping by. I make videos for sewing tutorials, pattern hacks, recently hand knitting, boy mom life, wife life, starter lock life, gym life. If any of these things are your cup of tea, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you know when I'm making new videos. Okay, today we are doing a video tutorial on hand knitted purses. Okay, so I saw this hand knitted purse on the YouTube somewhere and I was just looking up hand knitting things because you guys seem to like those videos. So I was looking up hand knitting things and I saw this hand knitted purse. I looked at the video, I'm like, this looks like something I can do because I'm not a knitter, but I do like the hand knitting. So I did some research and I found out for these hand knitted, like bulkier projects, they aren't using the same Bernat, whatever yarns that we were previously using. These are tubular filament yarns and they're much bulkier, but they add a lot of stability to it. So the potential to make a bag, some really cute bags at that. And I think this same process could be used to make tote bags, like boho bags, like, you know, probably even like duffel bags if you were real serious about it. So we're going to get into the details. I'm going to show you what I got. My first go round of this like attempt to make a like hand knitted purse, I just went to Amazon and looked for some fabric, or sorry, for some yarn. Looked for some yarn, and I did not realize I bought the smaller size, like a 5.5 or a 0.5 of a pound versus like a bigger one. So I just bought it and I got it, and it was too small to do what I originally wanted to do. So I ended up making this little bag. It's cute, right? Little bag. So this also led me to believe that you can do this in a bunch of different sizes. Like, this is a cute little something just to have like a cute accessory. But I went to Joann's because I saw on the website they had some on clearance. Couldn't find them. Went back again and I did find them. So I don't have like the label or anything because this was a jumbled mess in a back corner that they sold to me. They couldn't even key it in. So this is what the yarn looks like. No. Okay, there we go. This is what the yarn looks like. This is more of a t-shirt. Oh, the brightness. There we go. It's more of a t-shirt version of this. And this is the filament yarns. And you can, nope, like, this is what it looks like. This is more of a t-shirt fabric, like a jersey. This one that I got from Amazon is more of a velvet. So you have options. So this here is what I have left after making the bag that we're going to make today. So you can see here, I feel like the one that I bought for this, I feel like this is probably enough. I don't know how much this is. I'll measure it. Maybe I'll put a little note at the end of the video or in the description. I'll put the note in the description. But I'll let you know how long this is, and you know I can compare to how much I actually use for this because I used the whole thing, and I'll put the link for this in the description as well. So let's get into making this purse now that we have all the details. So this is my jumbo mess of a ball of yarn that I got from Joann's, just like this. No wrapper, no plastic, nothing. This is what it looks like, and you can kind of see it is like jersey, like fabric on the outside, and it has the like poly in the inside. So to get started, we're going to pull the fabric down, and you're gonna cut maybe like 3-4 inches of this. Make sure you got some good scissors because I kept mixing up my good scissors, and this stuff was not cutting. So you're gonna cut a couple inches off, and then you want to tie this end just in a little knot, just so you know the fibers and stuff don't slide out. So you're gonna make the knot, and then we're gonna start this process the same way we have started all of our other knitted projects, and that is with a slip knot. And I'm going to like unravel some pieces here. This tube of fabric, tube of yarn actually, is a lot thicker than what we've used in the past. So I was trying to make sure that my tail wasn't so long, and I struggled a bit to get this to feel like secure and tight and that it wasn't like super bulky to start with. I think it is important to make sure you have a good starting loop. I think it just makes your life a little bit easier. And I'm like, yo, it's still too big. So, like, I was going back and making some adjustments. And I'm sorry, y'all, I was going off the screen a little bit, but I keep trying to come back to make sure that I am showing you guys what I'm doing. But you'll see here, like, the knot just wasn't knotting. And it was just difficult to get it tight without having such a long tail because I also was nervous about potentially running out of fabric. This was before I knew that I would have a bunch left over. You want your loop height to be kind of tight. You don't want it to be too small or too big. So I just went with like a rule of thumb of like 2 finger widths. So you'll see me kind of put my fingers in to kind of give it a check. But we're going to start this the same way. You're going to grab your working yarn, and your working yarn is the yarn that is attached to the ball. We are going to do 8 loops. So the width of the bag is going to be 8 loops. Your chain loop is going to be 8 loops long. And here, sorry, I am going off camera again, but I bring it back again so that I can make sure you guys are seeing this. But you literally take your fingers through the loop and then pull the working yarn through. You want to try very hard to keep your loops relatively the same size, um, which is kind of like 2 inches for me, but I kind of adjust it back and forth. You can make them a lot tighter than what I did. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm very bad about counting loops and counting rows. So further down in the video, I pulled out pen and paper so that I can write and make tick marks when I am counting things to make sure that I don't lose track. So here is my chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This technically should have been 8. I did another one, and then I realized that I now have 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm like, okay, this one gotta go. So I took the first one out, and there I have my 8 loops. And now you're going to start your first row the same way you would do it on, any other project. So we're going to go inside the loops. We're going to pull the working yarn from the back towards you, and you're going to have 8 loops once you get done doing this. So pull it from the bottom towards you and out, and you want to make sure again that your loops are the same size. I know a lot of people in other videos had asked me to slow down a little bit. So for the most part, I try to keep the video real time. Once we get to like row 4, 5, and 6 or something like that, I did speed it up just a little bit, but I wanted you to be able to see what I was doing. So the difference here, we have our top row, which is our first row technically, and I didn't count this as the first row. I'm just counting this as like the foundation. So there is your loops, and I realized eventually that I did not have enough. I have 7, and I should have 8 loops. So I went back and make sure I didn't miss any of the loops on the bottom, and I see there's one more on the end that was a little bit tighter than the others. So I decided to go ahead and add that last loop so that I have 8 loops on the top. And you see I was struggling a little bit because I got my nails done, or rather I did my nails, and these nails are a little bit long, so I was struggling to get my finger through there so that I can pull the yarn through, but I got it eventually. And there you go, you have your first row and you have 8 loops. The next step is to flip it around. Once you have 8, count that again. We're going to turn it around. You don't have to turn it. It's just easier for me to turn it. So I turned it around, and then you're going to do 8 loops on the other side. So you're going to have a total of 16 loops, 8 on both sides of the chain. So again, I'm just using this as a filler to make sure that you guys can visually see in real time how I created the loops, because after this it is pretty simple. You just want to make sure you have 16 loops or however many loops compared to how many loops you put in your chain. So if you did 10, you want to make sure you have 10 on both sides. I did 8, so I had 8 on both sides. So you're just going to do that all the way till you get to the end. All right, so we're going to finish up this foundational row, and you want to make sure they're not twisted. I don't know what happens if they're twisted. I just want to make sure that they were flat and kind of neat. The yarn does have a seam on it. So if you're particular and don't want the yarn to show, when you pull your loop through, you can slightly twist or adjust it so that the seam isn't showing. And just so you know, the inside of this, like where my palm is, that is actually the right side of the purse. The wrong side is the part that's facing the table. So when you're twisting your yarn around, you want to twist it so that it's basically flat to the table, not up facing you. So you want to make sure you have your 16 loops. I actually realized I had 15. I had messed up somewhere. So I took it apart and did it again to make sure that I had 16 loops. So here is my updated like foundational set. And now I'm going to start on row 1. Row 1 is going to be just like any other hand knitting we've done, pulling your working yarn through the loop. And you want to continue to make sure you have 16 loops. I did this a lot later in the process, but I put a piece of string on the end of the loop, and I'll show you where that is in a little bit later, just to help you keep track of when you've gotten to the end, because once we get further along in the process, it gets a little hard to know which one is the first and which one is the last. And I also grabbed a piece of paper. I think I mentioned this, piece of paper and a pen, so that you can make a number, make a mark, so you'll know which row you're on, because I'm very bad at counting, like really, really bad at counting rows. Like I get distracted, I'd be in La La Land, and here we are 50 stitches later. So we're gonna continue to go around. This one here, I try to pull it a little bit closer so there isn't like a big gap there, but we're gonna keep making new loops for that first row, and we're going to pull the working yarn through. Really simple, nothing crazy. You want to make sure your loops are close to the same size. And I don't know, I don't think I have any other advice here. Don't make them too small, because it was difficult if I found it was a little bit too tight to get my fingers through and pull the yarn through. But otherwise, this is really simple. This isn't any different than the cardies we've made, where we did like, 50 rows of these. And we're only going to do about 8 rows. I think 8 is the goal. So you'll see here how I said the part that's facing you, this is the right side of the bag. Eventually, we'll flip this inside out. So here we're at row 2. I'm turning it around because I like my working yarn to be coming, like going the direction that I am knitting in. So you'll see here, I'm like pulling the yarn to the left because that's the direction that I'm going. There's my pen and pad because I am now on row 2. And I told y'all, I got this yarn on clearance at Joann's, and it was a jumbled mess. So the yarn was like actually twisted. And at one point I found a knot. There you'll see me adding like a piece of string. So I know this is the end. Every time I get here, I am starting a new row. So we're going to continue to add the pieces. I'm triple checking, making sure that my loops aren't getting too big. And there is that knot that I was telling you about. And you can see how my yarn is kind of twisting. I think this is just exclusive to the fact that I got a messy ball of yarn from Joann's. I don't think this would be traditional to any other like, yarn that you bought from anywhere else. I think this was just my issue because I didn't want to spend a bunch of money to try this project. So here we're going to keep going in a circle. I like to pull this one a little bit tighter so we're kind of closing that gap between the two of them. And then I'm turning my project around so the yarn is continually coming from the direction I'm going. There's that knot. I'm like, yo, what is happening? It took me way too long to realize I should have just pulled the whole entire ball of yarn through here to remove the knot. I just kept moving the knot down the line, but eventually I figured it out. So here we're just going to finish up row 2. And again, you want to make sure that you have 16 loops, that you didn't lose any, that you didn't drop any. While I finish this row, I think this would be a super cute bag for like prom. If you wanted to do like, if you could find these in like specialty colors, like a cute like little handbag for prom would be super cute in these. Like I am really digging these, and I think I want to make me like a super big one. But again, this is not cheap. I have made it to my yarn, my string, I keep calling it yarn now, my string where I've marked my row, and I've marked my notebook to know that, okay, I'm on row 3 now. So you're going to continue to do this the same way. You're going to keep going around, making sure your yarn's not twisted, and I'm leaving them relatively slow so you can see me do this over and over again. Put your yarn back. I did forget at one point and I got confused. And I was like, I think this is the last one. So we just gonna call this a new row. So make sure you put the yarn back after you make that new loop for the next row. And we just gonna keep doing this. The total amount of rows is 8. And that's pretty much for like a standard handbag size, like a satchel. Here we go with that knot that's still driving me crazy. It's pretty much standard size for a satchel, like a handbag. Like I think if I was to do like a hobo bag, I probably would do like 15, 16, maybe even 20 rows. But for today, we're doing 8 rows high. So to recap, we have 8 loops wide, so 16 loops all the way around, and then we're doing 8 rows up. So that is your dimensions. I don't know the pattern, or people like to ask what's the pattern. I don't know the pattern. I just know 8 rows high, 8 loops wide. But we're going to keep doing this. This is row 3. We're going to keep doing this for the next 5 rows, and there's nothing else that needs to happen other than just creating new loops, making sure the loops are the same size, and making sure there isn't like extra length in between the loops. Other than that, this pretty much the same, and you can just take your time making the rest of the rows. All right, y'all, I'm back. This is what our bag looks like. You want to give that loop a pull so that it doesn't come out. And we just going to flip the bag inside out if I don't knock over the camera. And you're just going to push the corners and push it out. You don't have to be super gentle about it. If the loops come out, you can just loop them back. So here is pretty much what the bag looks like. I had a loop there that came completely out. I'm just going to pull it back. And if you find any of the other ones are like close to like pulling through, you just, adjust your loops so that they don't fall out. So here is our bag, and we're going to start on the finishing of the top edge. And there is two ways you can do this. I'm going to show you both. The first method is going to be what I have labeled it as the gathering method. Don't know if that's a real term, but that's what I want to call it. So we're going to call it the gathering method. So to do the gathering method, I am going to cut a long piece of um, working yarn. And I did not do an exact measurement, but for the gathering method, it doesn't have to be that long, but I cut a long piece because I wanted to be able to show you both ways. But I would say maybe 3-4 times the length of the total edge of your bag. So all the way around one time, like 3-4 of those. And with the gathering, and sorry y'all, the scissors. This is my bad scissors. I thought they were the good scissors, and it was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to cut this. So make sure you got some good scissors. I had to go get my good scissors and come back to cut this. So again, I did it like 2 or 3 times the length of what the opening of the bag is currently, and then we can start method 1. Okay, so to start the gathering method, you're going to cut a long piece of yarn, and then we are going to take the end of the yarn and put it from the inside to the outside. And basically, we're going to do that for all the loops. And you will see here, I made a critical error where I had to do it over, which you'll see in a second, but I skipped a loop. I don't have any other way in my mind of how to fix it. And you see there, I skipped that third loop and I went to the fourth loop. Don't do that. So be careful to make sure that you are catching all the loops. You're going to continue to pull the end of your yarn from the inside to the exterior of the bag. And I was like pulling this all the way through, and I thought, I can just do a bunch of these at once to make this a little bit quicker. But again, take your time because you might miss a loop the same way I did. So you're going to go all the way around the bag, putting the working yarn from the end. You're going to put it through the inside to the outside, inside to the outside, inside to the outside. And this is filmed in real time. I didn't fast forward this up so you can see, how long it took me. And if you have a bigger bag, this will take longer, but it didn't take very long to get the whole thing kind of threaded, I want to say. So once you get to the last loop, you're going to pull that working yarn through there, and then all of this extra yarn that I have down here, I'm just going to pull it. So that's why I call it the gather method. I'm going to just pull. Also, I put my yarn there, my what you call that thing? I put my string, Jesus. I put my string back at the last loop so that I would know where it was, because I'm gonna need that when I get through. So you're gonna pull your yarn all the way through if you didn't pull it through while you were threading it. So you're gonna pull it all the way till it's tight. And then with this method here, you can make this opening as big or as small as you want it. This one, I made it kind of tight. That's right there is when I noticed I skipped the yarn. So you will see if you skipped it. So I came to the realization that I got to take this all the way out and do it over. But you see here how the bag is coming together once you pull the yarn all the way through. So here, now this is fast forwarded because you didn't need to watch me do this again, or maybe you did. You can leave me a comment below and let me know if, you know, you want me to slow down and show this gathered method again. So one more time for good luck, we are going to re-thread the top edge, making sure to get all the loops. So from the interior to the exterior, always making sure to push the loop from the interior of the bag towards the exterior of the bag. And again, this doesn't take long, so redoing it wasn't a big issue for me, but I was double checking, like, I ain't missed no more loops, did I? And as you pull it together, you can kind of see it coming together. I personally like this method more than the other method I'm going to show you. I feel like it looks a little cleaner and it looks more like a purse than like a knitted project, but that's my opinion. So you're going to keep doing this over, um, thread inside to outside, and I'm kind of pulling along as I thread so I don't have to pull so much at the end. And there are a couple more stitches, or sorry, a couple more loops here. Those loops in yarn and fabric be switching me up, like catching me up. But here we go. We're getting to the last. I had a loop that came out. Just fix that. Make sure that you aren't losing any loops. And then you're going to pull the yarn through. And then I am going to pull the yarns tight all the way around. And as I was saying before, you don't have to pull this as tight as I did. It could be looser. This, how tight you pull it will basically let you know, basically would determine how wide the opening of your bag is. So you'll see here it's a little bit tight, but you can easily go bigger or smaller. It's your preference. Just depends on how tight you want to pull it. And then you can adjust your loops so they're straight. As you saw a second ago, like one of the loops was kind of pulled to the left, so it made it look like there was a big gap there. So I just straightened them out. So this is what we have so far with the gathered method of the top edge. It kind of looks like a purse to me, like a drawstring bag. So now we're going to start on the strap. For the strap, you're going to take your working yarn and you're going to pull it underneath that first one. So your loop is going to go on the outside. So here's a close up. You're going to take your working yarn and you're going to pull it inside the bag towards the interior of the bag. And you will see there is a loop right here to my right there where my finger is. Hold on. Yes, right there. So there's a loop right there. There's a little opening. Your yarn is going to come from the inside to the outside, making a loop right there. And then you're going to take your working yarn and you're going to pull the yarn through over that loop. So over that first loop there, and then you're going to pull it out. And this is how you start your strap. I have a screen here that will have the amount of loops you need for certain straps. So if you want a crossbody, a shoulder bag, etc., like those loops will be there. So you want to make sure this is tight because you don't want it to be bulky. I'm just doing this one as like a shoulder bag. So I felt like the loops was getting a little too big. So you're just going to make a chain just like we've done on all the other ones. You're going to keep going. And then if you don't necessarily want to follow the amount of loops that I gave you, you can just test this out and see how long you want it to be. But it's really simple. This is the end pretty much for this. So you're just going to continue to hand it and you'll see me here kind of testing it out to see if I like the length. You can do this however long you want to because it's your project. That's your business. So once you get to the point where you've gotten your strap where you kind of want it, you want to put it towards the bag, get a visual, understand that this is what I like or what I don't like, or you can easily take them out just by pulling the string. You can counter loops like I'm doing here. And once you get the strap to the length that you want it to be, you're going to take that loop, put it in the same spot as you did the other side, and pull the loop to the inside. And then you're going to flip your working yarn. My working yarn actually ended up on the other side, so you'll see me like pulling it around like towards the inside of the bag. There you go. So you're gonna pull your working yarn there, and then there's your opening where you slid it through, and you're going to pull the working yarn through the loop to kind of close it off. So this is the end of my yarn. I'm actually not going to cut this because I'm going to take this apart so I can show you guys how to do the other side. But this is pretty much the end. To finish this off, you would just cut this and then tie a knot like we did when we first started and like finish it, like weave it into the bag. So that's how you would finish it. This is the finished bag of the gathered method. And now we are going to move on to the cast off method. All right, I took out the gathering method and I'm going to start the cast off now. And the cast off is the same that we have done with all of our other projects that we've done before. And if you haven't watched them, go watch my other hand knitting tutorials. But we're just going to start a cast off. So we're going to have one loop, not too big, not too small. And then you're going to make a second loop. So you got one loop on the right, and you're going to have one loop on the left. You are going to take your first loop, the one on the right, and put it over the one on the left. And then you're going to take your working yarn and you're going to make a new left loop. Take the current right loop, put it over the left loop, just like that. And then we're just going to keep repeating it. I'll try to do this with numbers. There's the first loop and the second loop. You're going to take your first loop and pull it over the second loop so that it's now the first loop. And you're going to continue to do this all the way around the bag. Make a new second loop. First loop goes over the second loop. And as you can see, it's starting to make this like braided technique along the top edge. First loop over the second loop. And we're just going to do this all the way around the top edge. You get this cute little braid detail coming together. And this is a standard cast off, at least standard for me, cast off. And it gives the purse a different look. When I guys told you before that the gathered method was my preference of the two. It is a cute little technique though. But I think this gives more knitted versus the other one gives more like actual purse. But it just depends on what's your poison. Which one do you prefer? Leave me a comment in the comment section. Let me know which finishing method you prefer. So we're going to keep going. And while I do this, I do want to mention the reason we kept the string on the other side was so that we knew where to start when we were finished. And you see the strings on the table. I did not put it back in after I took the other bag apart. And it's okay because this is a cast off method. I can see where the last loop is. But if you choose to do the gathered method, it might be helpful to put the loop just so you know where to go. It also gives you a good point of reference of where your strap should be. Yeah, we're just going to keep going. And we're almost done. I think we have like 3 or 4 more loops. One thing about the cast off method is you can't really adjust the opening too much unless you want to do like a double. So instead of putting one yarn over the next yarn, you could take 2 of them and put them over the third yarn. But I feel like, I'm sorry, the third loop, not third yarn. Y'all got me. I feel like it would get real bulky. So I don't know how that would look. So pretty much the opening of the bag is the opening of the bag. When you do this method, you can try to make your loops smaller and tighter so it's kind of pulling together. But I think pretty much the size is the size. And for your strap, we're going to do this the same way we did the other one. We have our last loop there and make sure our loops don't fall out. You're going to pull one over the other. And then we are going to go under that first loop. Here's our bag with the cast off method. We are going to take our loop and we're going to insert it into the bag. But you'll see here that I'm running out of yarn. So we have to do a little intermission to show you how to combine the yarns. Hopefully you won't have to do this because I felt like it ended up being a little bit messy. But if you mistakenly buy a shorter skein of yarn like I did, this might be helpful to you if you decide to buy a smaller one. But we're going to do this the same way. Loop goes inside towards the outside so that the loop is on the outside, and then you're going to pull your loop up like this, and then you're going to pull the working yarn through the loop to make your chain for your strap. And then we're just going to repeat this process, but first we are going to stop to show you how to tie on another yarn if you happen to run out. So once you get to the point where you want to add on a yarn, preferably not on your strap, I think if you have the opportunity to add yarn or you need to add yarn, I would add it earlier in, not while you're making the strap. But this is where we were, and this was just for the demonstration for this tutorial. So you're going to pull that top layer of fabric back and you're going to cut the threads on your yarn that is connected to your purse, and then the yarn that's on your new ball of yarn that you're going to be adding. So you're going to pull the top layer back, and then you're going to cut the fibers. Make sure you have your good scissors because this thread will put you to shame. And you're going to tie it in a tight knot, just like you would do for your chunky blanket yarn, like we've been doing in other videos. You're going to pull this super tight. I feel like when I pulled it there, I'm left a little slack in between the end of the yarns and the knot. Maybe not do that. Maybe try to pull the knot super tight first before you kind of pull it, because then I feel like it got a little limp in the middle, which is not what I wanted, which is why I say if you can do this on another section of your project that's not the strap, it would be better, because I feel like I could definitely see it. But yeah, that's all you have to do to add on a new yarn. But if you're making a little bag, I don't think you would need to unless you are making like a super mini bag like I did the first time. Otherwise, I think you're going to be okay. But if so, add the yarn like in the body of the bag. So I'm going to continue to make my strap. I did around 12 to 14 loops here. And you see, like, this was just a demo. So all of these aren't specifically how I would do this in real life, because I feel like these loops got a little bit uneven in size. But I was going somewhere and I'm like, I want to finish this so I can edit and get this stuff done. But that loop there was way too big. And you can tell, like, it gets a little wavy. So more consistent loop lengths and tension, and you'll have a better strap than this one. I think my first strap was a lot better. But we're going to do the same process here. There's your bag, there's your strap. If you're okay with that length, you're going to take your loop. Oh, I'm going to add a couple more because it did look a little short. I'm not even going to hold you. So you're going to take your loop. Once you get it the right length, you're going to cut your yarn. When you're finally done with your strap, you're going to cut it. Make sure you got them good scissors. You're going to take your loop. You're going to put it right in that first hole right there on the outside. So you're going to go outside of the bag to the interior of the bag. You're going to pull your loop right on through. You'll see it there in the inside. And then you're going to take the end of your yarn that you cut and you're going to pull it right through that loop and pull it tight. And then I like to tie a knot into like one of the loops right next to it, just to make sure that it's super secure. But then once you're done, you're gonna do the same thing again. Pull those fibers out, pull the top layer back. You want to cut that so you can get a nice, good, sturdy knot in there, and not worry about adding a bunch of excess bulk. So once you have gotten your yarns together and you have your casing on the end, then you untie a knot and then tuck the extra length into the bag. I just get real nervous about these knots in knitting, so I just want to make sure that my knots are super secure. So like I said, I looped it, on there super tight, and I grabbed the next one just to make sure, the next loop to tie that string around. But then once we have gotten that knot tight and secured and the ends tucked, I gave it a little fluff to make sure, everything's sitting the way it should be. And this is what the bag looks like with the cast off on the top. And there's the inside. I still think it's a really cute like accessory, like a pop of color for sure. Here's a little B-roll so you can see the bag with your knit stitches. This was a super easy project. Here's a reference for the size. I did have a little bit left over, enough for another little project if I wanted to. But thanks so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. Until next time, bye.